My beloved friends, open your ears and your hearts, because what I am about to reveal can change the atmosphere of your entire life. There are powers that operate in darkness, forces that work in secret, plotting the downfall of every home that dares to rise, every family that dares to prosper, and every soul that dares to live in peace. These forces are ancient, cunning, and relentless. They do not always appear as monsters or demons. They hide behind things that look normal, even beautiful, and yet they carry the fingerprints of destruction. They do not knock at your door and announce themselves. No, they slip quietly into your environment through objects, symbols, and gifts that seem harmless. And while you go about your life, these objects sit in the corner, on your shelf, or under your bed, slowly poisoning your peace, draining your strength, and blocking your blessings. For too long, good people have been ignorant of the invisible war raging around them. They blame bad luck, sickness, broken relationships, and financial setbacks on coincidence or circumstance, not realizing that there may be a deeper, darker cause. Many homes have become altars of oppression without the owners even knowing. The enemy has found ways to infiltrate through ordinary things, items that have been charged with negative energy, cursed in secret, or dedicated to powers of darkness. Once they cross the threshold of your house, they act like spiritual Trojan horses, carrying the enemy's agenda directly into the heart of your home. And when the home is defiled, the lives inside it become vulnerable to chaos. I tell you this not to scare you, but to awaken you. Awareness is your first weapon. Knowledge is your first defense. If you do not know the tactics of your enemy, you cannot resist them. You cannot fight an invisible war with closed eyes. Today, your eyes must open. Today, you must see beyond the surface of things and discern what is working for you and what is working against you. Because not everything in your home belongs there. Not everything in your environment is neutral. Some things are silent assassins of peace, silent thieves of prosperity, silent carriers of sickness, confusion, and unrest. There is hope. You are not helpless. The moment light shines, darkness loses its grip. The moment truth is revealed, deception collapses. That is why this message is so urgent. That is why you are hearing these words right now. This is not by accident. This is a divine appointment. You are being called to take inventory of your surroundings, to look again at the things you have allowed into your living space, and to make a bold decision, because what you tolerate will dominate you, but what you confront will flee from you. The time has come to confront what has been hiding in plain sight. You do not need to live under a curse when blessing has been promised to you. You do not need to accept unrest in your home when peace can reign. But to walk in that blessing and peace, you must first remove the doors the enemy has used to enter. You must recognize and eliminate the objects that witches and agents of darkness plant in houses to gain a foothold. In the moments ahead, I will reveal 7 such objects, 7 entry points that must be shut. As you listen, let your heart be strong, let your spirit be alert, and prepare yourself for action. Because once you know the truth, you will never allow these things to remain in your home another day. The enemy of your soul is not clumsy. He is calculated. He studies your patterns, your weaknesses, your routines, and even your surroundings. His strategy is not to storm your door in daylight, but to creep in through shadows at night. He understands that if he can defile the atmosphere of your home, he can weaken your spirit. If he can weaken your spirit, he can break your will. And if he can break your will, he can disrupt your destiny. This is not a random attack. It is an organized campaign, a deliberate infiltration designed to make your home a stronghold for darkness rather than a sanctuary for light. He does not begin with big, obvious attacks. He starts small, subtle, almost invisible. An innocent looking object here, a strange symbol there, a gift from someone whose heart is not clean, a decoration that carries meanings you don't even understand. And while you admire it, hang it on your wall or place it in a corner, it becomes an altar. It becomes a spiritual landing pad for forces that do not belong in your life. What you think is harmless day, or could be a magnet for torment. What you think is a simple charm could be a hook for destruction. This is how the enemy works. He knows that a home is more than just walls and a roof. It is a spiritual ecosystem. Every home has an atmosphere. Every atmosphere has a sound, a smell, a feel. When a home is clean spiritually, you feel peace, clarity, and joy. When a home is defiled, you feel heaviness, confusion, and unrest. The enemy's strategy is to replace the atmosphere of peace with the atmosphere of chaos, so that you lose your rest even before you lose your possessions. He attacks the unseen so that he can control the seen. Many of you have wondered why things break down in your life without clear reason, why sickness lingers, why arguments erupt in your home over small matters, why your sleep is disturbed, why your finances dry up just when breakthrough is near. You thought it was coincidence or bad luck, but behind the scenes there is a strategy at work. The enemy's tactic is to plant what I call spiritual time bombs in your living space. They sit quietly, unnoticed until the right moment, and then they explode in cycles of loss, sickness, or despair. Understand this, the enemy cannot just walk into your home uninvited. He needs an entry point. He needs a legal ground, a foothold, an object or a symbol that gives him permission to operate. This is why cursed items are powerful to him and dangerous to you. They are like keys you never meant to hand over. Once they are inside, they open doors you never knew existed. They invite spiritual traffic you never wanted. But here is the good news: exposure breaks his power. Once you know his strategy, you can shut him out. Once you recognize the objects he uses, you can remove them and cleanse your environment. You do not have to live under a hidden curse. You do not have to tolerate the enemy's strategy in your own home. Awareness is your weapon. Discernment is your shield. Action is your sword. When you rise up and confront what has been hidden, you break the enemy's plan at its root. This is why what I'm about to share next is so important. This is not superstition, this is strategy. As you listen, you are learning the enemy's blueprint so you can tear it apart. Because the same way he plans in secret, you will now act in light. And the light will drive out the darkness. Now the time has come to bring what has been hidden into the open. It is not enough to know there is a strategy. You must know the instruments of that strategy. You must be able to recognize, name, and remove the very things that have been planted to harm you. What you cannot identify, you cannot resist. What you cannot see, you cannot cast out. That is why, in this moment, you must allow your eyes to be opened beyond the surface of what sits in your home. Look at every shelf, every corner, every piece of decoration, every object that has entered without discernment. Ask yourself where it came from, who gave it to you, and what it represents. Because the enemy thrives on your ignorance, but he loses his grip the moment you identify his tools. There are 7 kinds of objects that I have seen repeatedly used to invite destruction into homes. They do not all look alike, but they carry the same purpose: to open a door to darkness. The first are objects tied to occult practices, charms, amulets, pendants, or bracelets said to bring power or protection, but in reality bring bondage. Many people wear them thinking they are harmless or even lucky, not knowing they were dedicated to dark forces before ever touching their skin. The second are symbols of false gods or idols, statues or images worshipped in secret by those who crafted them. You may think they are only art or souvenirs, but in the spirit they are altars sitting inside your house. The third are books, manuals, or materials filled with witchcraft, spells, or rituals. They may seem like curiosities or harmless reading, but their words carry weight. Every spell is an invitation, every incantation a seed planted in your environment. The fourth are objects received from people with unclean motives, gifts given to bind rather than bless. These can be clothes, jewelry, or even everyday items that were cursed before being handed to you. Without knowing, you bring into your space what someone else dedicated to harm. The fifth are images and artworks steeped in darkness. Paintings, posters, or sculptures that glorify violence, perversion, or occult power. What you hang on your walls speaks over your home day and night. The sixth are ritualistic instruments, candles, stones, or objects once used in sacrifices, ceremonies, or seances. Even if you did not participate in those rituals yourself, the objects retain the energy of what they were used for. And the seventh are personal items that you or your family once used in forbidden practices. Old tarot cards, crystals, or anything linked to invoking spirits. These things do not just sit quietly, they act as open doors, allowing the very spirits you once called upon to remain as uninvited guests. As I speak these words, some of you already feel a stirring inside. You remember a bracelet you were given, a figurine on your mantle, a book you once read and tucked away. This is not coincidence. This is your spirit recognizing the truth. Do not ignore that inner witness. Do not dismiss the uneasiness you feel about an object just because it looks harmless. Darkness wears disguises, but discernment tears off the mask. The moment you identify these objects, you strip the enemy of his camouflage. This is why you must not hesitate. Identification is not about fear, it is about freedom. When you know what to remove, you know how to protect your home. When you know what has been working against you, you know how to shut the door to its power. What you are hearing now is not just information, it is an invitation to act, to walk through your home with new eyes, to examine every object with the light of truth. And when you recognize the 7 kinds of objects I have named, you will be ready for the next step to cleanse your home and claim back the peace, the health, and the blessing that is rightfully yours. Ignorance is one of the most dangerous weapons the enemy uses against people. What you do not know can destroy you. What you do not recognize can drain you. Many families are suffering not because they chose darkness, but because they allowed darkness to sit quietly in their homes without knowing it. And because they were unaware, they never resisted. Ignorance becomes permission. When you do not identify the enemy's tools, you unconsciously agree to live under their influence. Think of how many homes are filled with constant arguments. Husband against wife, parents against children, siblings turning cold against one another. Many say it is just personality clashes or stress, but what if the real cause is deeper? What if the unrest is being fueled by cursed objects that you welcomed unknowingly? The moment they entered your space, they began to whisper into the atmosphere, stirring conflict, feeding suspicion, and destroying unity. Ignorance allows the enemy to sit at your table, to sleep in your bedroom, and to poison your relationships without resistance. Sickness, too, often takes advantage of this. There are people who go from one doctor to another, spending their money, swallowing medicine, and still the illness lingers. The body remains weak, the mind remains tired, and no solution seems to work. Why? Because the sickness is not only physical, it is spiritual. When cursed objects are inside your home, they create a channel through which affliction flows. It is like keeping a window open during a storm. No matter how much you clean the floor, the rain keeps pouring in. Until you close the window, the problem remains. But when you live in ignorance, you do not even see the window is open. Finances also suffer under this weight. People work hard, yet money slips away like water through their fingers. Opportunities rise, then vanish. Businesses start, then collapse. Savings grow, then disappear in emergencies. Many blame themselves or the economy, but they never consider that objects sitting in their own homes might be attracting poverty. When witches dedicate an item to destruction, it carries that assignment wherever it goes. If it rests in your living room or bedroom, it brings its curse with it. Ignorance makes you live under a poverty you were never meant to endure. There are also spiritual consequences. Some people find it impossible to pray. Every time they try, they feel distracted, heavy, or dry. The Bible feels like an empty book, worship feels lifeless, and faith feels distant. What they do not realize is that their environment has been compromised. A cursed object in their home acts like static on a radio, interfering with the signal between them and heaven. And because they do not know, they keep struggling, blaming themselves, while the real thief sits untouched in the corner of their house. Ignorance is costly. It robs you of peace, it steals your joy, it wastes your strength. The worst part is that it gives the enemy free access while you remain unaware. That is why so many people live beneath their destiny. They were called to rise, to shine, to prosper, but they remain in cycles of delay and defeat because their ignorance has become the enemy's greatest weapon. But, my friend, now that truth is being revealed, you cannot remain blind. You cannot continue to tolerate what has been destroying you in secret. The consequences of ignorance are too heavy to carry any longer. Once you know the truth, you are accountable to act. Ignorance is no longer an excuse. If you leave those objects in your home after hearing this, you are choosing bondage over freedom. But if you act, if you rise up and remove them, the cycle will break, the atmosphere will shift, and what was once closed will begin to open in your favor. Awareness is the beginning of victory. The moment light shines, darkness trembles. The enemy's greatest weapon is secrecy, but your greatest defense is revelation. When you open your eyes and see with discernment, you strip the enemy of his disguise. You take away his ability to operate in silence. What once hid in plain sight is now exposed, and what is exposed can be removed. That is the power of awareness. Discernment is not just human logic. It is not simply looking at an object and judging by appearance. Many cursed things look attractive. Some even come wrapped as gifts, glowing with charm and beauty. But discernment goes deeper than sight. It is the inner knowing that comes from the spirit. It is the alarm bell that rings inside when something is wrong, even if the mind cannot explain why. It is that uneasiness you feel when you walk past a certain item in your house. It is the heaviness that settles in your chest when you look at a picture, a necklace, or a book that does not belong in your life. That inner witness is the voice of discernment. Awareness opens your eyes and discernment sharpens your perception. Together, they give you the power to reclaim your home. Think of your house as a garden. If weeds grow undetected, they choke the flowers and steal the nutrients. But when you are aware, you recognize the weeds early. When you are discerning, you know which ones to pull out from the roots. Without this, the enemy turns your garden into a wilderness. With it, you cultivate a sanctuary filled with peace and life. This power does not belong only to spiritual leaders or prophets. It is available to every person who seeks truth. If you desire to protect your home, ask for your eyes to be opened. Ask for the wisdom to discern what does not belong. Many people dismiss their instincts, ignoring the warning signs because they fear they are being too sensitive. But what you call sensitivity is often discernment. When something feels wrong, it often is. Do not silence the voice within you. Pay attention to the unease, the disturbance. The small inner nudget may be your spirit alerting you to an object the enemy is using as a doorway. Awareness and discernment also give you confidence. Once you can identify the objects meant to harm you, you no longer live in fear of the unknown. Fear thrives in darkness, but faith thrives in light. The enemy loses his grip over a life that sees him coming. Awareness closes the blind spots, and discernment shuts the gates. You walk through your home no longer as a victim, but as a guardian, no longer as a tenant, but as an owner. You do not merely live in your house, you take dominion over it, and this dominion matters, because when your environment is filled with peace, your mind becomes clear. When your mind is clear, your decisions improve. When your decisions improve, your destiny unfolds without hindrance. Awareness and discernment are not small virtues, they are keys that unlock blessing. They protect your family, preserve your health, and secure your future. Now is the time to rise in that power. Open your eyes to what has been overlooked. Trust your inner witness. Walk from room to room with spiritual sensitivity. Ask yourself, does this belong here? Does this bring peace or does it bring unrest? Is this carrying blessing or is it carrying bondage? And when the answer comes, do not hesitate. Remove what must be removed, because awareness without action is wasted. Discernment without obedience is ignored. But when awareness leads to action and discernment leads to obedience, your home will shift from being a battlefield to being a sanctuary. The time for silence is over. The time for delay has passed. Now is the moment to act. You cannot walk away from this truth unchanged. You cannot hear about the enemy's strategy, about the objects he plants in your home, about the consequences of ignorance, and then continue as if nothing has happened. What you tolerate will eventually dominate you. What you refuse to confront will continue to grow in power over your life. That is why this is not just a message to listen to. It is a call to action. Do not wait for tomorrow. Do not tell yourself you will deal with it another day. Tomorrow is the language of defeat. Delay is the weapon of bondage. Every hour you allow cursed objects to remain in your home is another hour the enemy has permission to operate against you. If you want peace, you must fight for peace. If you want blessing, you must remove the curse. If you want freedom, you must shut the door to bondage, and that begins with action. Decisive, immediate action. I am not telling you to admire the list of objects. I am not telling you to discuss them like theory. I am telling you to search, to confront, and to remove. Walk through your home with eyes open and heart alert. Look at every corner, every shelf, every drawer. Touch the things that carry uneasiness. Hold up the gifts you never felt at peace with. Examine the books, the jewelry, the statues, the images, the charms. And when you find something that does not belong, do not hesitate, do not rationalize, do not excuse. Remove it, destroy it, throw it out of your house with the authority of one who has awakened. Because this is not just about objects, it is about ownership. Who owns your home? Who sets the atmosphere where your family sleeps and eats? Will it be you under the blessing of God, or will it be the enemy hiding behind things you refuse to let go of? Every time you remove a cursed object, you take back territory. Every time you cleanse a room, you reclaim the atmosphere. Every time you act, you are declaring, this house belongs to blessing, not to bondage. This family belongs to light, not to darkness. This life belongs to destiny, not to destruction. Do not let fear paralyze you. Fear says, what if I need this? What if it is not really dangerous? What if people laugh at me? But courage says, if there is even a chance this is an open door, I will close it. If there is even a chance this object is carrying darkness, I will remove it. It is better to live free without it than to remain bound with it. Your home is not a museum. It is a sanctuary. Your possessions are not worth more than your peace. Your decorations are not worth more than your destiny. When you act, heaven acts with you. When you cleanse your home, the atmosphere will shift. The heaviness will lift, the confusion will scatter, the sickness will weaken, the poverty will lose its grip. Blessing will begin to flow like fresh air through an open window, and the very peace you longed for will take root in your rooms, your relationships, and your rest. So hear this call and act on it. Do not just agree in your mind, move with your hands, take charge of your home, declare it clean, declare it free, declare it untouchable by darkness, and from this day forward, let no cursed thing ever set foot in your dwelling again. Because you were not created for bondage, you were created for freedom. You were not chosen for destruction, you were chosen for destiny, and destiny requires action, not tomorrow, not someday, but now.